Well, the holiday season is right around the corner. And for caregivers, that doesn't mean that your work slows down. And while the rest of the world is celebrating, you're still juggling medications, moods, and those moments that can change in an instant. Awareness Month might be over, but the challenges of caregiving don't take a holiday. And that's why we need to talk about the gaps that make the season harder than it needs to be. But I have some good news for you. You can close those gaps one at a time once you start to understand where they are. So let's talk about the 5 biggest gaps in dementia caregiving that I see. The first one is the behavior gap. This is the space between reacting and understanding. When your loved one is lashing out, withdraws, or refuses care, it's so easy to take that personally, especially when you're already fatigued and exhausted. But behavior is communication, and decoding it changes everything. When you understand why it's happening, you can respond with calm instead of all the confusion and chaos. The second gap is the medical communication gap. This is the one that shows up when you leave the doctor's office more confused than when you walked in. See, you shouldn't have to translate medical jargon or guessing what's important. This gap means learning how to communicate clearly with your person's providers, bringing the right notes, asking the right questions, and making sure that your loved one's story is heard, that they're not just an ICD 10 diagnosis, but a real human with needs and concerns. The third gap that exists is the transition gap. And this one breaks my heart because it's where so many families get blindsided. And maybe you recognize some of these because it might be the hospital discharge that comes with no planning. Or maybe it's the move from home to assisted living and realizing no one passed along the details that really matter. But look, transitions don't have to be traumatic when you have a plan and a voice at the table. The fourth gap that I see is the emergency planning gap. And if you've ever scrambled during a middle of the night fall or a medical scare, then you know this one. Because what I found is that most caregivers don't know what medications or details that they'll need until they're right in the middle of a crisis. And then it's just a little bit too late. You see, having a caregiver go bag and an emergency plan turns panic into preparedness. The last gap is often the most under-recognized because it's experienced by the caregiver who's expected to carry it all. And that's the emotional fallout gap. And like I said, this one is the quietest, but I think it definitely runs the deepest for most caregivers. It's the guilt, it's the grief and exhaustion that builds up when you're already carrying so much alone. This can be exacerbated in situations like holiday chaos. For those of you who've worked with me, you know that I don't believe in self-care. I believe in restorative care, resilience care. It's not self-indulgence. It's a form of survival. And as a caregiver, when you find small ways to fill this gap, you don't just take care of yourself. You make your caregiving that much more sustainable. So some of you may be wondering, how do I find my own gaps? Well, inside of the Caregiver Gap Report, there's a quick self-assessment. It's just a few questions to help you pinpoint where your biggest gaps are. And caregivers that I work with find that there might be one or two that stand out right away. And those become your starting point. Because once you know what's missing, you can start filling in those gaps with confidence instead of just guessing. You've probably heard me talk about the next step, something I call the CareShift. This is a place where we move from awareness to alignment, from identifying the gaps to actually closing them. And this month, I'm opening 100 early access spots for caregivers to get a free sneak peek at the CareShift. It includes one of my new favorite tools, the Holiday Communication Kit. It helps you to simplify family conversations during the holiday season. And it's my way to thank you for everything that you've carried this year. So, if you haven't done so already, go download the Caregiver Gap Report, take the self-assessment, and then grab early access to one of the spots in the CareShift. because awareness was step one, and this is step two. I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see you there. And until next week, I'll be here sharing for you while you're caring for them.